David, you are up. Thank you for joining again. How are you today?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all?
Cute name, by the way.
Love it.
Thank you. It's only acceptable.
When I saw that come into the queue, I just couldn't stop giggling.
I just had to join to keep up the daily David quota. That's all I really
I
came
don't even
for.
have any other Davids today. I was starting to get scared.
See, I told you. Before you guys head out.
No, you're awesome. So what have you thought about kind of what we talked about last time? Do you have some
I
good
can't remember exactly
new
where we
points?
left off. Do you guys remember what
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were talking about when we ended last time? I know it was towards the end of the stream and it was getting late, and here I am again being.
I know.
I'm not trying to be weird, but
I'm already sleepy anyways. But I don't remember where we ended.
well, and that doesn't necessarily have to matter. We can start wherever we want.
Yeah.
Sure.
If there's anything that's been said tonight that like hit you, or something that was on your mind, or wherever you want to start, we'll let you.
Well, I was also listening to you guys and Rocky, so I was that's what's going through my brain too. But
yeah, Rocky was a good caller.
Yeah,
she rocked. Josh, you definitely were set up to be a youth pastor or a certain dad. Just to end on that last
I'm
line
telling you.
I know.
Now I'm in sales though.
Okay, but David,
same.
Just imagine being married to it.
Oh man,
it's
talk
a lot.
About
it never stops.
Yeah. Talk about resiliency. I was thinking about this. I know when we were chatting, we went through a few things. And I went back thinking about it, and I was like, and I think what we started with was I was saying the evidence that I was looking for were things outside of the Bible. And I went back to them and I was like, oh, there may still be something to it, but not that it's something any stronger, but it was something like I was looking back at some of these previous historians, Tacitus being one of them, or Josephus, or Pliny the Younger.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because it gives it more validity because these people weren't Christians, but they were like, I think, some of them are like, they'll talk about during the crucifixion, I think it was the eve of the Passover, but like, the sky changes, or Jesus, superstitious, or was doing these kind of superstitious things, but vehemently like, hey, I hate this new Jewish cult thing going on. And so I just found that really fascinating. So that kind of initially piqued my interest and stuff, but I didn't really have a main line to kind of chat about. But
no, actually, I love that you brought that up. So, and I've got my Josephus book over there too. Now I love, so Josephus is my favorite.
I'm gonna pop up.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
you're good.
One of the kids is texting.
She's gonna do the thing.
No,
gosh.
Kids.
Oh yeah, you're good. Okay, so now correct me if I'm wrong. So Pliny was in his writings was when the emperor was saying, Pliny was writing to the emperor saying, hey, there's this like Christian movement. They didn't say Christians weren't like, no, actually, I think he did actually say Christians, but he's like, there's this movement happening, these Christians, what am I supposed to do with them, type of thing. So he kind of like references the Christians. He doesn't really even kind of know who they are, but he knows of them. And he's like, this is like, what are these type of people? So we know from Pliny that the Christian movement like was there and existed, right? We know from Tacitus, the same sort of thing. It's Josephus, I think, that really kind of like talks about, Jesus. And it's interesting. Now, I actually, on record, cannot stand conspiracy theories. I cannot stand them. So I apologize that I'm going to like throw something out there that could be considered a
Well, what's funny, especially how things are in America a lot. I feel like it's a new there's always a new news thing, but people will say like conspiracy theories are just spoiler alerts now.
Oh, that's what's really weird is with the way that like information is these days.
Yeah, man.
You're probably not wrong. Like that's the crazy thing, right? It's like information can be so like screwed up now that like I used to think there's no, now it's like, well,
yeah, exactly.
But like the thing with Josephus is like in all of his books, right? And he has an extensive like, catalog of his histories. And the thing I like about Josephus is that his histories don't seem to be very embellished. So you have like Herodotus, for example, who's also like, a Greek historian that we have to rely on because, they're just in ancient days, there just weren't a lot of true historians. Most of the time they were just like people telling legends because, sex sells, right? They were like, oh, I could tell the story of this war, but how did Homer tell it? Well, we got inside this horse and we got inside of the city and then we broke out and then, what I mean? It's like, and then Achilles and then, like, it's got to be like cool and like, magical. But Josephus sticks pretty straight to the book. It is interesting, and you'll need to do a little research on this, and that is, there weren't a lot of existing like copies of Josephus like in like the early like CE period, right? And the version that existed was with one of the early church fathers, and they kept asking him to provide Josephus. Now, there is a clear section of Josephus that I believe, and this is what for my 2 cents, I believe in, and so do some other scholars, that it was originally written as Josephus wrote it, which is basically like there was this, Jesus, and actually I have to literally grab my book. Dang it, I don't want to like break live with Fidel not here. Once she pops back,
you're fine.
I'll grab my Josephus. But there's a section where it's like everything sounds like Josephus. He does write about Jesus. I personally believe that Jesus was a real person. I think he walked on the earth. I personally also think that he was crucified. I do not deny that. I think there's just too much. I think that there's too much evidence for that to be fake.
Yeah, I think I agree from a non-religious aspect that that at least checks out.
Yeah. And then what's weird though is they kept asking like this church father to like produce the book. What did Josephus believe? And then in the version that was produced at that time, which carried forward, right, of course, in the Roman Empire, which was, Christian at that time. I think it was around 400 CE. It was after 400 CE. It said, who was like the Son of God? Or there's something in there that says like, and Jesus, who was the Son of God, low key. Just like, by the way. And then you read all of the rest of Josephus, and he was a hardcore Jew. Like, you're telling me he wrote all these texts and all these books, and he then in one paragraph just drops the mic on a total heresy of Judaism and is like, oh, and by the way, I'm a heretic. And then right back into it, Yahweh's everything,
Sure.
So I don't deny that, like, Tacitus, Pliny, Josephus, which by the way, you hit the 3. There aren't a ton of outside references to Jesus until you get into the period where Jesus becomes like, Christianity becomes mainstream. Obviously, Constantine made the religion legal in 325, and then you've got Theodosius who just like rammed it down people's throats. Technically, that was when they rammed swords down people's throats that didn't believe. But but after that, things start to that's when you start to get other manuscripts. But you bring up good points, so I'll stop there. Sorry, I love history.
No, you're fine.
I'm trying to piece it together.
You didn't miss much. I told a short story long as per usual.
Yeah. You luckily came by and you stopped him from talking.
He stopped me in time.
I'm sorry I left you, David.
No, it's fine. I was like,
David,
I hope
do
she
you
comes
have
back
pets?
soon.
Before we finish this conversation,
I do. Yeah. Well, I have a cat. Yeah, I grew up.
You have a cat.
dogs.
Okay. Well, so you don't understand the plight of tiny dogs and their glandular problem.
Which is this? You may have to enlighten me, but it sounds like I don't want to be enlightened.
Well, if their glands are full, then stinky oils happen.
Oh yeah.
So stinky oils just happened from my dog onto my child.
Oh.
So that's
not
where I was.
fun.
I'm really glad to be back, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just had a
And now we
blast.
need to make a vet appointment.
And I think glandular stink oil is something that'll get you banned from YouTube if you talk about it too much. So we'll just gloss over that.
This is true. No, but we were talking about because I was thinking about our conversation last time, and one of the things that initially kind of brought me to consider Christianity just in general and it was the sources outside of the Bible. And so I did a quick Google search. I was like, well, I haven't really looked at this probably in 11 years or so, however long it's been since I started this thing. But like some of these people, I just took quick note. Josephus, what he said, one of the quotes is James, the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ. And then it says, now there was about this time Jesus a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was one who wrought surprising feats. He was Christ. He appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. One version reads, at this time there was a wise man named Jesus. His conduct was good and was known to be virtuous, and many people from among the Jews and the other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die, but those who became his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion and that he was alive. Accordingly, he was perhaps the Messiah, concerning whom the prophets had recounted wonders. Julius Africanus quotes a historian, Thales, in a discussion of the darkness that followed the crucifixion of Christ in the extant writings. And there's one more. Tacitus, who is considered one of the most accurate historians of the ancient world, mentions superstitious Christians who suffered under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. Chief secretary to Emperor Hadrian wrote that there was a man named Christus who lived during the 1st century. But not, I think what Josh and I were talking about is that at least puts on the table that Jesus existed and was crucified, and from people that were not his disciples, believers, Christians, whatever they would have been considered at that time. Because I think that lends to something. Because if Jesus didn't exist, then obviously this whole thing has nothing to talk about. If he wasn't crucified, definitely not as well. But then something to consider. And so I think that's what got me on that journey. And I think we were going into Galatians, but I forget what I was trying to point to exactly. I don't know.
Who was the second though? Because I need to look into the one that you mentioned. So you mentioned so there's Josephus, Tacitus, and Pliny. Those are the 3 I'm really familiar with. But there was another one that you mentioned too that I'm not as familiar with that I do want to research.
Julius Africanus.
Okay, I'm gonna actually just make a note of that. Julius Africanus. Okay, cool. Yeah. I will look into Julius Africanus because, quite honestly, I'm just as
well, I was just saying make a tab and then we can look at it later.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to look up now. I'm just.
No, I was going to wait, and I was going to just sit here while you read all his letters.
Okay, so we'll put our whole music on.
Yeah. No. One thing I'll add to, and good point about like I think that our best like documentation of Jesus outside of the like text or the Gospels and really Paul, because Paul was really closer in time than even the Gospels, really is Josephus, because Josephus lived like right around the time that Jesus did. Like and what's crazy is, could you imagine, like, what if Paul and Jesus like were like in the same town together at one point and like they didn't know? But that's just
probably, yeah.
But because they were all in the same zone, right? But just keep in mind though, like, I mean, Josephus also talks about like Hercules as like a historical real figure too, which is cool, right? Hercules was a real figure, just like Jesus was a real figure. Does that mean Hercules did all the magic Jesus did? I mean, it's the same.
I've seen him in the movies. It might be.
Maybe. You also have like Josephus also talks about like warriors fighting in the sky. So even though I will say that like Josephus is like more true to like factualness than like Herodotus or Homer or some of these others.
Yep.
There's still some embellishment. Now, I will throw out to the viewers, and I throw it to you, like, do a little bit of looking into this whole, because it's a little interesting, this whole like where the text like looks like it breaks off and then it's insert Jewish heresy and then back to Judaism. And Josephus was writing for the Roman Empire under Vespasian, which Josephus called Vespasian the Messiah, according to the Hebrew Bible. So like Josephus is an interesting case study, but I do want to get back into Galatians for sure, because I love Galatians.
Sure.
What do you got for us in Galatians? And I got to get my other Bible for Galatians, because that's where I keep more of my notes.
All right, let me hop back. I was with you guys in Isaiah.
Because that's the one you wanted, right?
No, I don't want this one.
No, that
This one,
one.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted the other ones.
Gotcha. Oh, this one. Yes.
What was it? Let's see here.
Also, big shout out to Galatians, because Galatians is in most critical scholars' opinions one of the undisputed Pauline letters. So whether you're on the Christian or non-Christian side of the fence, scholars believe that Paul really did write Galatians. It's not like a pseudo Pauline letter by any stretch.
Yep.
That's a good point. That's
Um,
what I need to get better at, is which writings of Paul do
I
we
like Paul.
actually really attribute to Paul, and which ones do we think weren't Paul? I want to get a better handle on that.
I
How they
think you have
draw
to
the line
become
a little bit is
historian.
like
Unrelated,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
while
yeah.
you were looking
Yeah,
for
we can talk about
Galatians,
that later,
I find
yeah.
that interesting.
No, I agree. And lastly, I was thinking about the kind of trajectory we were talking about last time, because it started with kind of these outside sources. Then it was we went on a whole tangent on cult leaders, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, we did. That's right.
and then my kind of upbringing, and then I think it's this may kind of coincide with what Rocky was saying a little bit, but it was this kind of internal battle that you deal with, right? Like, and what I noticed, So what I noticed as I'm reading Galatians over is that Paul, for some reason, is like really adamant about going against false teachings, which I guess you could also say that is another justification of Jesus, like Gnosticism or whatever. Like they're still talking about this Jesus guy,
So can you
even
state
though
that one more time? Paul's going against
false teachings.
False teachings. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Paul-
false teachings.
Oh, I heard Paul's teaching.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
false teachings. Okay.
Yeah,
And I was
he's
like,
really-
wait. Paul's
He's-
going
he's-
against himself?
He's really he's really fighting himself, talking about this internal struggle.
It's an internal struggle.
Sounds like me every morning trying to get out of bed.
Right. But he's really adamant about fighting false teachings, even to the point of disputing Peter, which again, Peter can't catch a break, but it's
love
it's which is so fascinating, because Peter's on the mountain of transfiguration, he's walking on water, he's doing all
He's
these
the
things.
rock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the rock. Jesus like, hey, you're the guy, and then like
Yeah.
Paul comes and like, I'm gonna write all these letters.
Yeah.
Wait, is that the rock Paul hit his head on?
Oh.
It's all connecting.
Oh,
Dang, dude. There's the conspiracy.
We caught it. But I find it fascinating, because I think he's trying to fight for something, and I think even what we were talking about last time is that it's interesting of the first century Christians. Even you can see Paul, like the level of integrity or the attempt thereof, and like what's the win of whatever they're doing. Because the difference with these cult leaders and everyone who from probably the beginning of time who's had an interaction with God, like what do they win, and whom are they harming? And again, we were talking like over time, of course, that would get diluted, and then people do whatever. You get your new televangelist today with a smile, and then take everybody's money for his private jet. But
Right. That agreed. You can clearly see their motivations on that.
oh yeah. Well, at the same time, apparently not many.
Right.
If they're paying them to get the jet, but
Right.
but it's like, okay, why is it so adamant to fight against these false teaching? Because he's talking about in one sort of this text of like against circumcision. To me, if I'd be like, I don't care, like that's not that would be the least of my worries.
that's not the
You know what I mean?
defining factor.
Yeah, I don't care about your genitals. I can sleep at night.
Right.
I don't
Well,
care.
that is a very relevant conversation, by the way.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
continue.
But it's like, but again, it's the Jewish law, obviously, that obviously meant something tremendously, and then even Peter's tripped up about it, right? And so, which is very interesting. But he's really trying to fight for this thing, but it's way beyond just kind of circumcision. He's talking about the essence of the law, and like what the power of the law has, and like this law is getting in the way of freedom that's found in Christ. And I'm trying to find a passage to start off with.
Also, I appreciate
In
hearing.
Galatians?
I
Are you in
appreciate-
Galatians?
I appreciate hearing the pages.
Yeah,
turn,
right. You've got a Bible
because
in front of you.
I'm rocking the pages too, because everyone just goes to the internet now, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
fine, it's faster, but
It's
whatever.
I
I'm
do
a
audio
pager.
engineering. It's all a facade. I put glasses on, and this is all sound effect.
Yeah. You're just hitting a button.
Yeah. Just the epitome of
He's got a
laziness.
keyboard.
Right.
Yeah.
Page rustling.
Yeah, insert page rustling.
Let's see.
Yeah, being circumcised is like taking on the whole burden of the law, like being enslaved.
Yep. Galatians 3, chapter 10. Let's see. I'm gonna scroll down.
For
Maybe
all who rely on the
15.
works. Here, I can pull it up on the screen too for folks following along.
Right. That's the bonus as a
Yeah.
streaming to
Oh,
be
yeah,
able to
for
put
sure.
it up.
Might as well pull up the whole chapter. That might save
Yep,
you.
Galatians
but,
3. Yes, I hate out of contextness, so I appreciate that.
I'll start
That
on.
was almost a word.
Out of contextness.
It's you foolish Galatians. That's
Oh,
amazing.
man. Dude, Paul was hot in Galatians. He was on one.
I love how the Bible's like, hey, you gotta love everybody, be gentle, and then here comes Paul just yelling at everybody.
Dude, and this is partially why we know that this is really Paul. When you like Paul is an emotional guy. Like,
yeah.
I can imagine, like, and he had to be. If you think about it, you have to be like a charismatic, like emotional person or something, like you drawing in people, because he really, if it wasn't for Paul, there, the Christian movement wouldn't. I mean, of course, if you're a Christian, you'll think that the Christian movement would have been inevitable, but really, Paul's the one. If you remove yourself from that thought process, Paul really took it. I mean, and he thought it was happening, like, in my opinion, like right now. So he was just like, dude, don't even get a new job, don't get married, don't have kids, just we're going. It's go time.
Well,
like, passionate.
I was thinking about this last week. I was like, if Paul genuinely had an encounter with God, or what he thought was an encounter with God, I was like, he did exactly what he was supposed to do with his life. He was like, what else is he supposed to do? He can't be like, well, I'm just gonna go back to work and call it a day. It's like
1,000%.
You know what I mean? He's like,
very, very good point.
1,000%
this is
agree.
God. What are we doing?
Yeah, 100% agree.
I'll start on 15. It goes, dear brothers and sisters.
3:15?
Yeah, 3:15.
Okay.
Dear brothers and sisters, here's an example from everyday life. Just as no one can set aside or amend an irrevocable agreement, so it is in this case. God gave the promises to Abraham and his child, and notice that the scriptures don't say to his children, as if it meant many descendants. Rather, it says to his child, and that, of course, means Christ. This is what I'm trying to say. The agreement God made with Abraham cannot be canceled 430 years later. When God gave the law to Moses, God would be breaking his promise. For if the inheritance could be received by keeping the law, then it would not be the result of accepting God's promise. But God graciously gave it to Abraham as a promise. Why then was the law given? It was given alongside the promise to show people their sins. But the law was designed to last only until the coming of the child who was promised. God gave his law through angels to Moses, who was the... Yep.
The only reason I'm saying that is because this is...
Well, it's just a different translation.
Well, I know, but I don't see anything about a child here. Until the offspring. Okay.
Offspring.
Sorry, I was just trying. Like, I know we have different translations, but I was just trying to follow along. And
actually, I can flip. What translation are you in?
NLT, the one you didn't like.
Oh, that's okay. I'll NLT it. Hey, it's better than the KJV, so it's cool. At least you're not going off of. Oh gosh,
well, you don't have to flip it. I was just looking for like something that...
No, it's easier if we go. It's easier if we go off the same version. Okay, hold on.
I was going to, after that, read the my Watchtower one. So.
Oh yeah, you're good. Dude, you're awesome, man. Okay.
Okay.
Where was I?
I'm so sorry.
No. It was a legitimate question.
I was just like, wait, if there's a child in one and not in the other one, we got problems.
Well, that's a great question. Verse 19, I'll start there.
19.
There we go. Okay, cool.
Why then was the law given? It was given alongside the promise to show people their sins. But the law was designed to last only until the coming of the child who was promised. God gave his law through angels to Moses, who was the mediator between God and the people. Now, a mediator is helpful if more than one party must reach an agreement, but God, who is one, did not use a mediator when he gave his promise to Abraham. Is there a conflict then between God's law and God's promises? Absolutely not. If the law could give us new life, we could be made right with God by obeying it. But the scriptures declare that we are all prisoners of sin, so we receive God's promise of freedom only by believing in Jesus Christ. And I think it's kind of goes to that point when we were in Peter the last time of like, there's a lot of complexities to these Pauline letters, right?
Mhm.
But he's very adamant of like, listen, the law is not it. Like it was a guardian at some point, but it can't do anything more. It's like its purpose is to show you your sin. But it's not negating anything because it's always been about faith. Like Abraham had faith. He didn't have the law. Um, and so it's to show you something. But I think what Rocky was saying was like I didn't come on in the beginning when she was talking, but it's a conflict of a sinful nature. And then I think about myself, right? It might be in Galatians, no, it might be Romans, but Paul is talking about his own internal conflict and like he knows the good he ought to do and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that I think like we all have a conscience, we're all made in God's image, at least from the Christian perspective. And so, we know the difference between right and wrong, but there's still areas where I would violate where I know where I want to do something different. Could be I feel like every American will tag on lust. I feel like Christianity sometimes is like the crusade on lust, but it's like there's more to it. It's the heart condition.
Yeah.
But even as I was talking about my father, like it's like I know I should forgive him. Like even if I look at layers before him, like I know he came from an abusive household. Like so
Sure.
it's like it checks out. It was like I need to forgive him, but like
You can know
why?
stuff and still struggle with it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so, but it's a real struggle because then, like, if the struggle's too strong, I'll be like, actually, I'm just not going to forgive him. So it's like that type of war that kind of goes on internally. And so that kind of put evidence to it as well. So I found that fascinating. And then, what's another thing here in Galatians that I was?
And actually, let me throw something out to you on this,
Yep.
because you have some really really good points there.
Mhm.
So in a lot of the Gospels,
Mhm.
now this is where, and I'm just gonna, man, because this is our second conversation. This is where I'm gonna get meta on you here.
Oh boy.
You keep saying meta tonight.
I play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, he does
Okay.
play Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, so it's a little unfair. I will tell you that I have an advantage. So
Okay.
the advantage is this. I believe, and unfortunately, this is where I feel like I have the advantage,
Mhm.
that there are that the New Testament and the Old Testament were not all written by the same God. Okay.
Okay.
So I believe, let's take the New Testament because the Old Testament's a whole nother story. No pun
Mhm.
intended. So I believe that in the New Testament we have sections and how it was put together. So I believe that you have like first the original Paul letters, the 7 Paul letters,
Mhm.
and then I believe that you have the Gospels, and Mark was first, and then I
Mhm.
believe Matthew and Luke were written closely together in 2
Mhm.
different areas, and then after that you got the pseudo Pauline letters, which are the 6 other letters of Paul that were used to kind of like Christians in certain communities were like, we don't really like that, and so then you get Ephesians because you're like, you know what I mean, like, but Paul said this actually. That's not what Paul
Okay.
actually said this, and it
Okay.
clarifies the other Paul letters. Now, what's sad to me is I bet Paul wrote a bunch of other letters that we don't actually have initially, and
Mhm.
man, I would
Oh,
kill
for
to
sure.
get that. But
For sure.
anyways, and then after that, you get John that brings in Philo and Middle Platonism, and then you get like the school of James refuting Paul, and then you get Revelations, which was like an apocalyptic Judaism focused Christian movement.
Mhm.
And then you have all the Gnostic texts, and I hate that we group the Gnostics into one group because there's like
Mhm.
Marcionism
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
all these the Sethians and all these different Christian movements having
Yep.
all their other gospels, and they got eventually thrown out during like the church period. So what we
Mhm.
have is this hodgepodge of texts, and I say text because back then they weren't even codices, they weren't even bound together as books,
Mhm.
they were scrolls,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So the advantage, unfortunately, that I have is that you have Paul's writings, like Galatians, for example, where he's like, it's not about the law, it's about love. But then of course you have James where it's all about like, it's more works driven. And you have in Galatians, like when Paul says the so-called super apostles, he's talking about James and that those guys, they were with Jesus. What he was saying, like not even very much between the lines, like he was just saying, you can hear it in the tone. It's like these guys think that they know because they were with him, and they know because they were with him. But I know because I'm getting direct revelation. So whenever like Paul speaks, he speaks like this, like I'm getting firsthand knowledge. When you get like the Gospels, it's like third person perspective. This is what Jesus said. Don't get me started on John or Acts, where like, okay, side story. But what's interesting is you've got like Matthew, where it's like, in Matthew it says, I did not come to abolish the law or the prophets, but fulfill them. The fulfill versus abolish, we can get a whole nother conversation about. You've got Matthew 9:16, 19, where he's like, keep the commandments. You got Matthew 22. Matthew, of course, who is Matthew writing to as a primary audience, and for viewers, and if you want to look this up, he was writing to the Jews, right? Exactly. So he's all about, like, Jesus is all about keep the commandments in Matthew 19:16, and then you got Matthew 22:36, where he's like talking about the greatest commandments, and on these two commandments hang all the laws of the prophets. Now in Matthew, that's where he gets into like, you brood of vipers, and he's like reaming the Pharisees. And it wasn't because of the law that the Pharisees were preaching. It was the oral tradition that the Pharisees, they were taking the law and they were adding stuff to it, like that weren't the actual law. And so he's like railing into him. And in Matthew, the whole message, and you can go like Matthew 23:1 as well, do and observe everything, regarding the law, because he's saying the original law was the pure law. But in Matthew's message, I'm going to one-up it. And that's when he's like, it's not just thou shalt not murder. If you look at someone with anger, it's as much as committing murder. It's not just don't like take your neighbor's wife. It's like if you've looked with lust, so it's almost like in Matthew, it's interesting because he's taking the law and he's like, not only do you need to fulfill or follow the law, but I'm one-upping it. Now you've got Paul. And I'm going to ask you a question because I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, let's let him talk again.
Right, sorry. My question is, why would Paul have any reason to contradict the law? Like, why would he say, you know what, it's more about the heart and not about the law, when you've got like Matthew, who's hardcore, like, it's the law, and James is like, no, dude, it's the law. And even the other apostles at the time, Paul saying these are super apostles, these guys. What would be Paul's motivation?
Let me make sure I understand you. So you're saying, what's Paul's motivation for saying the law is essentially not the standard anymore? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Well, it takes more than that.
And you're saying comparatively, Matthew is saying the law is a standard, and the same with James. Right.
I would say like at that time, yes, I would say at that time, you've got Matthew, you've got the apostles in Jerusalem, the OGs, saying that we need to follow the law and you need to be circumcised. And then you've got Paul saying, actually, you don't. What would be Paul's motivation for saying, actually, you don't need to be circumcised?
I'm trying to think how to say it, but also I feel my sleepiness coming. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this makes sense. I at least on the Pauline point, like it's in the passage we just said, and then almost another chapter. He's like, it's a guardian up to some point, right? It wasn't, because even reading like the scriptures of the Gospels, it's quite evident that like the Jews misunderstood something, right? Like even how they're holding to it, the Pharisees, they added more onto the law, but like if they understood it, if the Gospels have a semblance of truth, or if it is true, or to hold to that statement, they wouldn't have killed Jesus, right? Because they're like, well, that's, obviously, because that's the Messiah. So they missed something. But he says constantly in Galatians that like, hey, the law, I'm not saying the law doesn't have a purpose. It had a purpose up to something, but it's not it's not the thing that makes a person righteous. Like it's always been the faith undertone. What James is saying contrarily, and this is like we were talking about the things to wrestle with. This is obviously one of those passages I think you have to wrestle with because it's like they seem contradictory. Even someone that I think is much more wiser than me, I think this is one of the things Martin Luther was like, hey, this can't be canonized. And as we're going to, I don't think his deal was to create Protestantism, but he's like, James is not inspired because it's, contradictory, right? In the faith aspect. But and I want to see if I can even read the James to kind of say it more be outside of my own thought pattern and if it will make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll flip over to James here. Yeah, if you find the verse.
Where is it? I think James 1, maybe.
James doesn't waste time with the law.
No, he gets to
it. James right off the bat.
James is like my dad. All about the law, all about following ruls.
Listen, I don't even get started on.
I'm interested in that. But I'm gonna let it be. I had a Google. So it's James 2 somewhere. The section, at least how it is in scripture, will start in verse 14. You guys there?
Oh, yep. Just actually scrolling to it here. James 4. Yep, here we go. I'll pop it back up. Oops, my bad. Popping it back up. There we go.
There we go. Oh, faith without good deeds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the good one. Yeah, this is.
Yeah, this is
and I'm just reading a little bit ahead of time, just above it, just get some a little bit more context.
Yes, thank you.
David, you took notes, didn't you?
No.
Like from last time?
He just has a good memory.
Or you just remember that much?
I'm taking friggin' notes.
Wait, remember what part though? Like what we talked about?
I'm just saying, like, it seems like you like took notes from our last conversation and you like did your homework and you came back like ready for class. So you're giving me these vibes of
no,
like...
I did watch the video after I did it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, when I watched it, I was like, oh, I didn't make any sense.
No.
And so then I was like, I gotta go back.
No,
but then I'm tired.
Only positive feedback.
Yeah, no, you seriously, you represented well. I feel like you represent very well.
Great. Because I was like, that's definitely not exactly what I meant to say. But now I feel my sleepiness. So I feel like I'm even worse today. But we'll see.
Oh.
Let's see. I'll read verse 8. It says, yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal laws found in the scriptures, love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You are guilty of breaking the law. For the person who keeps all of the laws except one is as guilty as a person who has broken all of God's laws. For the same God who said, I think that's actually key. For the same God who said, you must not commit adultery, also said, you must not murder. So if you murder someone but do not commit adultery, you have still broken the law. So whatever you say or whatever you do, remember that you will be judged by the law that sets you free. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing and you say goodbye, have a good day, stay warm and eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds. It is dead and useless. Now someone may argue some people have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. And
that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff, actually.
And I'm thinking about Paul. I'm keeping Matthew to the side, not saying it doesn't matter, but I'm wrestling
it's a different
two things at once.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm with you.
I think Paul in other letters is kind of saying, no, because my mind just went blank, so I'm not going to say that. When I'm reading this passage in James, he's talking about, I'm not really reading it, and I hope I'm not interpreting it and forcing myself in a box to make it acceptable, just to be transparent.
Yeah.
But I'm reading it of saying, like, what is the purpose of having faith if it doesn't produce anything positive, right? Like it's
Sure.
like, yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
great
Jesus,
question.
and I just believe. I think that's kind of the gripe, maybe
then
that we
that's
were
it.
saying of, I think I said it a few times last video. Like I think the problem with people not being able to believe in the Christian faith is that, you know, it's hard for Christians to be Christians, decent Christians. You know, if we have more
Yeah.
decent Christians, the message will be a little bit more acceptable. Um,
Yeah.
so it you can't just sit on faith, right?
Mhm.
And I know probably the weakest testimony. I don't know if you can really put a weight to it, but you know, I think you were saying this with Rocky. It was like, well, what makes it different? Because one person say I
Mhm.
believe and I did this and I did this. The difficulty I think of living in life is like, well, what's actually the true thing? You know, if it could be more blatant, I think we think that like people would just do it. You know,
Mhm.
um, but
Well, and to
I
be fair,
mhm.
if I was a god, why would I not want to make it as clear as possible
Sure,
so that there
yeah,
isn't confusion
yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
hundreds of different religions and
I
non-consensus? Like, why
yeah,
would I
yeah,
not
yeah.
want to make it be like, here you go?
Yep,
Right.
yep,
I mean,
yep.
that's maybe a silly question,
No,
No,
or
I
maybe
think
it's not.
That's a good question.
I honestly think like all questions when it comes to God in general, I think are very genuine. I
Mhm.
to this day, even though being a believer and I think a mature believer for a while, like even talking to people who are not Christians and Christians, like there are
Mhm.
things in the Bible and I was like, I don't like that, or that sounds a little too silly. Like even in the garden, I'm like, why are we talking to snakes? Why does Satan even exist? Like, I don't think that's a good idea. Sounds bad, you know, like I don't see
It
any
sounds like
positive to this. But it
You don't
again,
like snakes in general, David?
I really don't. It's not my cup of tea, but you know, this
It's
whole
funny because I used to have a snake.
oh, you did?
I did.
Yeah, it's not what not what I'd want.
Not my cup of tea.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Nor
no.
are
He
dog.
barely lets me have a dog. I would not get a snake now.
Apparently, there are stinky oil glands.
This is true. To be fair, I don't want that either. So, you know, you guys just have a poor discernment when it comes to pets, it seems. Um, but I think James is saying like your faith has to be more than just be like, yeah, I say I have faith. I think again,
Sure.
we have that same problem today. I think in Western Christianity at least, right? Because it's like that's, you know, it's so refreshing talking to you guys because I've been in church for a while. And I'm saying this is not always the case, but 1 out of 10 times, people who are, uh, let's say, leaving the Christian faith as it be
Uh-huh.
traditionally put, or trying to figure it out,
Sure.
uh, usually it's not paired with like just a struggle. In my experience, uh, and I'm not saying it's all experience, just my church experience in my city, really. Um, But they just wild out, and it's very weird to me because 'cause I'm like, "Just say that, like, I don't care,"
What
and
do
it
you mean?
gets
Like they just like decide like I'm done, basically? Like they don't really have a reason or something? Or like
I talk with my friend who, is now the pastor, which I don't know if that's a plus or minus now, but, you know, I met him in college, and now he's kinda there. But,
a
we talk
prophet in
about
his
this,
own hometown is not welcome.
you
But go
know?
ahead.
Um,
Uh,
and this may tie into this too, actually, but this is aside Bible now, this is just my personal church experience.
Yeah.
Um, I give you a recent example, and it's funny because normally I wouldn't say this. I guess I would tell you this in confidence because you guys are basically strangers, but then it's like not necessarily confidence because it's on the internet. So I'm still
Right.
going to keep out
It's
names.
well,
cool.
you know, just use a fake name or something.
Yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. So
We're blacking out the David name on there.
I have
Do you want us to redact this?
Yeah.
my first experience. So, you know, become a Christian, and I think as most people who are genuinely trying to be Christians, like, this is awesome. I figured it out. You find your little group, you all have your mob mentality of doing the
Mhm.
greatest thing in the world. And there was this couple. I don't think they were Christians at first, but they became Christian, like, hey, we're gonna get married. They had 2 kids, I think, before being Christians or whatever. They get married. The guy's like, hey, I'm going to get a job in a state above. So he gets his job and he's like, all right, invite the rest of my family down there.
Gotta move.
Hardcore Christian thing, but he's like, you know, I'm trying to provide for my family. So we decide as a group of people, Christians are really good at a few things. One of them is stacking chairs. The other one is probably helping people move.
Man, you just gave me flashbacks. Oh, you just gave me flashbacks. I love that though, actually.
That is the universal Western Christian thing. How many
Yep.
chairs can you stack?
Yeah.
And
See, all that makes me think of is a band concert.
well, they do that in band concerts too.
Okay. See, I
But
never did band, but yeah,
Shut
yeah,
up,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because the ORC is the same room where you got to stack the
Yeah.
chairs. Yep.
You
okay.
got
Yep.
to. So you know, we're helping the wife move so she can go to the state above, and you know, so we pack the U-Haul, drive them down, all that stuff, and then like we're calling the guy relentlessly, like he's not picking up. We're like, all right, that's weird, and so goes through this whole shamble of things. Finds out he has a whole different family.
Oh no, I knew this wasn't going anywhere well.
What?
Well, this is my point. And this is why it's different talking to you guys, right? But this is my point. So then has a whole different family. The wife has no place to stay because she did. I can't remember if she was like minimum wage, didn't have a job. She was just depending on her husband. Like that was the plan. Like, hey, I'm getting this job. So he has his whole family. To this day, he still doesn't talk to his kids. She ended up having to go to a woman's shelter, and her kids were like small then. I think like 4 and 5.
I mean, obviously her too, but the poor
But you know,
children.
pro-Christian guy, you know, all that stuff. And it's like, see, that faith is dead. Like, that's not real faith.
I see what I see your point with this story is that like it's sort of like okay that actually is a really really good point you just brought up. It's the faith without works thing, right? It's like you can have the faith and you can believe, but if you're also a crappy person, it's like, are you really a Christian? You know what I mean? Like it's like you can have the relationship, because we were talking a lot about relationship in the last call.
Yep.
It was a lot about the relationship. But if you're, you know, I've got a really great relationship, but because, you know, all I got to do is pray and ask Jesus for forgiveness, and boom, all my sins are forgiven. That means, you know, this side hustle I've got, I know it's bad, but I'm praying it away.
Yep.
So, you know, eventually I'll straighten it out.
Yep.
But what James is saying is that you can't just like pray away the side hustle. You've got to actually follow through with what you're saying.
Absolutely. And it's like, this is one more. This is actually recent, and it keeps getting more crazy. This is actually, I would say, actually a crazier story.
Oh my God.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Let's go.
Hold on.
So like I work in a church now. I'm not on the like spiritual side. I do AV there. Before I was doing computer programming. But you know, after COVID, everyone's like, hey, we have to become a production studio for some reason.
Right.
And so but actually they don't say that, but I think most churches don't understand what that actually takes behind the scenes. But
oh, dude.
So you are in like
I was a worship band, so I get it, dude. Though that AV stuff is crazy.
It's crazy. What was your question?
Oh, I was just saying, so you are like your field, or you're like in the IT field, or like the
I am by trade in school. I used to do web development, and then when they asked for help, I just decided to help, and I keep trying to convince them not to pay me any money, and they act like they can't hear me. I'm like, I don't need the money, but they keep paying me.
That's awesome.
They keep it. So I was talking, I wouldn't necessarily say we were friends, we were acquaintances. Like we went to campus together, all that stuff, and our circles just never really passed. It was kind of like we had 6 degrees of separation. It's like our friends were friends of each other.
Isn't it wild how much that happens too?
Oh, sure. Part of that, I think, is just kind of like life. It's kind of like being at college or something. You're like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember you. If you see someone 10 years later that you just had in class, and then you're like best friends now.
Yeah, that happened to us when we bought this house. We came with our realtor to look at the house that we currently live in, and the next door neighbor happened to be outside, and he looked at me and he goes, "Didn't we go to college together?"
Literally.
I'm standing in this driveway
like a jerk
and like the sun's in my eyes. I'm like, oh, I know you from Spanish class. You're Jimmy.
See, I wouldn't remember because I have a terrible memory with people. But
yeah, that's my problem. But that's why she's way better.
We spent it all on remembering Dungeons and Dragons and random history notes.
No.
And so
it's eventually you guys are gonna have like some online D&D tournament, and the debate is over.
This is true.
And Josh and David are romancing their way into like their next D&D campaign.
It's cool.
So this instance, he was out of town. He moved to Florida, came back to where I'm at in 2 years. I think her family was in Florida, so they were there. So then he came back, just kind of living here, getting on their feet, finding a job and all that stuff, just coming back. And I was talking to him because I heard something was going on. I forgot what the detail was. I knew at the time. I was like, "Hey, man, heard your marriage was tough." I was like, "I've been there." And I was like, "I think I'm getting over it." It was like, "You ever want to talk? We can talk normal human stuff, religion aside." And he was like, "Well, I don't think we're going through the same thing." It's like my wife's been cheating on me with 7 different people, and
Oh.
like they have a kid together who's probably like 4.
Aw.
And he was like, "Yeah," and like last week she had like a DUI and we were about to go to court for a divorce. And I was like, I can't relate. But it's that type of stuff. It was like, if God didn't even exist, like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
this is insane. And
I
as he
mean,
as he
just human to human. What the
absolutely,
hell?
absolutely, like there has to
Yeah.
and like there's no remorse. And as he tells me the story, it's like no way. And so and even it divorce finalized, he has full custody of the kid, which in America is like not easy to do. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
as the guy,
Well, general custody battles are just
this is true.
horrible.
That's true
Yeah.
as well. But it's like, dang. I was like, yeah. And she's a preacher's kid and all this stuff. So it's like you can't see it coming with really anybody to something like that extent. But like as he goes and he tells the story, it's like you know, it's like this duality. And like at first he was thinking like, oh, she had like a bipolar manic depression thing. And then she's like, no, I just wanted to do it. And it's like, like it's a level of heartlessness. And like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a difference between, I think, someone who is struggling in their faith, right? I was like, you can struggle in your faith and not just be a terrible person. It's
Right.
like
Right.
I agree.
you not to do that. Like even if you're not a Bible scholar like maybe
Right.
Josh,
Right.
you've growing up in church, something of the 10 commandments. Like
Yeah.
it's like don't
Yeah.
just overdo this. And just the humanity of like, you have a child, you have a husband. What are you doing?
Well, and what's interesting is like, so I thought, and I know you
Mhm.
probably heard me tell this with Rocky, so I'll make it short. But like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that when I left the faith, I literally
You
thought
would
that
do
I
something
was
like that?
gonna be like a terrible person.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there was
yeah.
a moment where I was. I literally,
Mhm.
in my mind, it was like, boom, guardrails gone. I can do whatever I want. And
Yep.
I'm in the business world. I can make the shadiest deal possible.
Yep.
And what's really weird is that I quickly bounced back from that, and I'm glad I did, because I'm
Mhm.
actually fairly successful in business. And the reason
Mhm.
why is because I'm just nice to people, and I'm not nice to people because I think it's like a tactical advantage, but
Mhm.
I'm nice to people. There's things where it's like, whoa, I'm where I am now because I decided to just like help mentor this person
Mhm.
for free because
Yep.
I just wanted to literally help that person.
Yep.
And so it's like so it's interesting because faith without works is dead, which seriously, man, that is the best way. I have never heard James. In fact, I've listened to a lot of James sermons. I have
Mhm.
never heard James presented in a better way than that. I would take
Oh,
like that is the best way to present James
yeah.
because that seriously, that was really really good. And
And
and, and actually,
okay.
like from a philosophical perspective, that's like amazing. But like,
Mhm.
but here's the part that gets me a little bit is like where Paul was wrestling with like the so-called super apostles,
Mhm. Mhm.
including James, right?
Mhm.
Because in Acts it talks about Paul goes back to like the when he goes to Jerusalem, he
Mhm.
like makes his trek back, and and it's a little contentious, right? Especially because like I think it was like Barnabas was involved, and then all of a sudden like the like I think Peter, fact check me chat,
I'm
but
trying to
like
think of the reference. You keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What happens is Paul's in there and everyone's eating together and it's super cool. And then all of a sudden, like all of a sudden, like somebody comes in and there's this weird division of the eating because like all of a sudden,
Mhm.
wait a
Mhm.
minute, the
I think it's
super
in
apostle.
like that might be in Galatians itself. Like I think Paul checks Peter like, "Hey, he was like, he goes in talking about circumcision, like, hey, and to this point, Peter was cool. He was like, hey, faith only or whatever, something like that. But he's like, then after a while, or when the Gentiles are just there, but he's like, then when the Jews came, Peter's just eating with the Jews at the high school lunch table.
And now
I
you
called
got
him
to
out in
move
his
tables.
face. Yeah.
And he moves tables.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is this. I think where it boils down to, and this is where my sleepiness is also kicking in. So we'll end it after this. But yours is a good one to end on.
Yeah.
Is that like, if you think about it from Paul's perspective, if you're, so Paul's out with the diaspora, right? So he's in Gentile land. Okay. He's with Jewish communities that are outside of Jerusalem. So there's not a lot of like strong like Jewish law following. They eat the food sacrificed to, the other gods. They get meat that hasn't been strangled but has been, bloodlet essentially. And like there's the whole like circumcision issue. Like
the issue.
If you're in Jerusalem and you're Peter and James, who are leading the church, which I think it's fascinating. If you do a deep dive into like who was the real leader of the church at the time, it was like James predominantly. Like even Acts admits it, but like it's a weird deal because there's like this James Paul like contention. But I think if you think about it from Paul's perspective, if I'm as a salesperson or as a would-be youth pastor am trying to like sell other people on joining my group, joining this faith, and I'm like, but you got to get out the knife.
The circumcision. Okay, I was trying to figure out what you were.
That's a tough sell.
Well, they were doing it though. Like it was like Paul's upset. Like, no, don't stop. Like, don't do that. Like Gentiles like, well, I'm trusting him. He's an apostle. They're Jewish, but Paul's like, don't do that. And that was my point of like.
Do you think it was that Paul was? And then this is a genuine question. Do you think that Paul was like saying, "You guys are doing it, stop," or do you think it's like because in Acts it sounded more like, "Guys, stop forcing this cutting because it's not necessary." Now, from a sales perspective, I'm like, that would be a tough sell. Like, and I'm in a position right now where I'm trying to deal with this right now, where it's like, listen, you're putting something on me that's tough to sell. So it's not necessary because if you think about the message of Christ, it's not like about how much skin you have.
Yeah.
It's what you do, not how much skin you have. So it's like this whole like, but then you get like Matthew saying, follow every jot and tittle. And then you've got like James saying, more legalistic. And you have in Acts the conflicts where it's like circumcision versus no circumcision. And this might be because I'm a salesperson.
Sure.
And a Paul probably type person. I'm like, dudes, it doesn't matter. Stop making my people have to cut themselves to join my group. This is ridiculous.
Well,
it's a tough sell.
Yeah. I
could see that perspective.
In Acts,
could be wrong.
I can't. It's probably in there. It's just my brain won't connect me to it. But I was reading in Galatians where it talks about it specifically, because my I think it's a great consideration. My point was arguing about the actions that you do, and I don't know, it's because we're in our modern era, to be fair, but like arguing about the actions you do is like, okay, I can see that. Arguing, Paul is specifically in Galatians arguing that like, no, like, don't force them to do the circumcision, which as a Jew, that's a very stark thing to kind of stick to, because like that's been a definitive, literally, all in Old Testament. But he's like, no. And let me see if I can find where it says it specifically. I might throw on my Googles.
Yeah, no, you're good, man.
He's in his Googles too. He just set his Bible down.
Galatians 5. Man, really a cool thing would probably not for your stream, but really reading the whole thing, because it's like, as I go back a chapter, I'm like, oh, it adds everything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And if you have like a synopsis of the prior, or if we do need to read it, I don't care. We can freaking read it, man. Like I'm down with like I am here for the truth. The only reason, so the core of me is I want the truth. That's what I want, the truth. So if we gotta read a whole chapter or two, I'm down. Now Adele's like, what the heck, dude?
I was like, all right, let's start in Genesis 1 and we're gonna go to Revelation. Just sit with me.
Don't put words in my
also,
mouth.
did I just hit your poor tattooed arm?
Yes.
Oh.
This man has been hitting my wounded arm.
Yes. Goodness gracious.
David even knows.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna start on 5:8.
Okay, 5:8. Okay, cool. I'm with you.
And I lied. I was even looking at the wrong thing. I was like, no, I can't find it. I was in 4. Like, where is this thing? Oh, let's just start on 5:1.
Okay.
And mind you, this is Paul's thing. He's like, listen, you guys were free. I don't know who fooled you. I just cursed out Peter, telling him to stop, with his favoritism,
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. They were at it.
Which again, it's like, of all people, you're going to curse out one of the 3 closest people to Jesus. Well, I didn't curse him out, but just check them real hard. But 5, actually, let's start in 4 verse 21.
Okay.
I'll do 2 quick points and I'll let you go.
No, you're good. You're good. 4
verse.
I'm gonna say 4 through. I'm just gonna say 6 so we make sure we get it. Okay, gotcha. 4:21.
All right, so he's actually gives a Old Testament parallel that I'd like to connect with. Don't let me forget it, because I'm my little ADHD.
Old Testament parallel. Putting it in my
with Abraham's 2 kids specifically. It says, "Tell me, you who want to live under the law, do you know what the law actually says? The scriptures say that Abraham had 2 sons, one from his slave wife and one from his freeborn wife. The son of the slave wife was born in a human attempt to bring about the fulfillment of God's promise, but the son of the freeborn wife was born as God's own fulfillment of his promise." So he's talking about Isaac and Ishmael here.
Yep.
These 2 women serve as an illustration of God's 2 covenants. The first woman, Hagar, represents Mount Sinai, where people received the law that enslaved them. And now Jerusalem is just like Mount Sinai in Arabia, because she and her children live in slavery to the law. But the other woman, Sarah, represents the heavenly Jerusalem. She is the free woman, and she is our mother. As Isaiah said, "Rejoice, O childless woman, you who have never given birth. Break into a joyful shout, you who have never been in labor. For the desolate woman now has more children than the woman who lives with her husband. And you, dear brothers and sisters, are children of the promise, just like Isaac. But you are now being persecuted by those who want you to keep the law, just as Ishmael, the child born by human effort, persecuted Isaac, the child born by the power of the Spirit. But what do the scriptures say about that? Get rid of the slave and her son, for the son of the slave woman will not share the inheritance with the free woman's son." So, dear brothers and sisters, we are not children of the slave woman, we are children of the free woman. So he's alluding this slavery to this law giving to the commandments that Moses received on Mount Sinai, comparing it to Ishmael and all this stuff. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. Listen, I, Paul, tell you this: if you're counting on circumcision to make you right with God, then Christ will be of no benefit to you. I say it again.
Can you put that on the screen?
Oh shoot. This whole time, sorry, David, hold on.
That's okay.
This whole time I thought I had it on the freaking screen, and I
didn't
have it on the screen. Hold on. I've been just like reading it, like, oh, everyone can see this. Okay, sorry, there it is.
What I was reading for anybody watching it was Galatians 4:21.
Yeah, 4:21, and he's spot on. 1. Yep. Okay, it's on the screen now. Sorry about that. I was just like reading it on my it's being shared. Okay, it's shared now.
No, it's fine.
I didn't notice it either until someone in the chat says where they're reading from, and I was like, oh. I looked, I was like, nope, it's not there.
Galatians 4:21, and now we're on Galatians 5:3.
Okay. I'll start back on 1 just to connect it.
Yeah, good call.
For anyone wondering, this is New Living Translation. It's not some offshoot. It kind of it's It's not
It's
a
not the
crazy thing.
KJV. It's
Yeah.
cool.
I think that's reason it's intended as most translations, but it's intended to be understood and read out loud, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that
Um,
actually does make sense. And honestly, you're converting me a little bit to this version. It
Okay.
is way
Amen.
easier to read than some of the others.
Yeah, I enjoy that because you already have too many hurdles of we're not historians, we're not Jews. It's at least
Right.
give
Yeah.
me something here
Give me
to
something we
not.
can
Something
actually
I'm already
a little
bending my
bit
brain.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
yeah, accessible.
Yeah,
Some
I like it.
accessibility.
NLT. All right.
So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. Now I'll pause here because like if I'm Paul, I'm like, do the circumcision. Like, I don't care. Like that to me, I'd be like, oh, that's just your devotion to God and Jesus. Like, I'm like, what's the problem? You know? But they're thinking, like, no, I need to do this, or like, or Christ will not accept me, right? Because listen, I, Paul, tell you this: if you're counting on circumcision to make you right with God, then Christ will be of no benefit to you. Like, I'm worried about like feeding the poor, you know, staying off Pornhub. He's just like, hey, keep a knife away from your penis, or like Jesus is no good to you. And I'd be like, what? Like, I'm trying. I thought I was doing the good thing. You know how hard that was to even get to? Like I was shaking doing that.
No, I really, really wanted to cut it.
Right. Or like usually for a man, that's the last thing. It's like if you fall out of an airplane and you're like holding your head or your genitals.
Yeah, exactly. I have a story about that, but I won't say it.
But then he goes, I'll say it again. If you're trying to find favor with God by being circumcised, you must obey every regulation in the whole law of Moses. I think that's the point that we always constantly get stuck to. It's like, yeah, it's not about like it's not about being a good person because God has allowed goodness in all of us. That's the whole image of God thing. The issue is that like you break one law, you break them all. I think it says something similar in James of like, hey, if you commit adultery, you're also a murderer. Like you also have not fully done the law. So in that way, these kind of connect. And again, that analogy I was given about my own church situations, the 9 out of 10 times it's something chaotic, and I'm like, ain't no way. And so and I see the membership revolving, which is just normal religion stuff. But I'd be like, when I talk to people, I'm like, no, you had to do something, you had to beat her or something. But anyways, and so but he's like, yeah, if you break one law, it negates all. And another aspect in Galatians, I forget where it is. It's probably near maybe 2.
So that's actually
4.
So let me make sure I understand correctly. So this is really good. So it says, I tell you this, if you're counting on circumcision to make you right with God. So basically what he's saying is, if you're counting on the law to make it right with God, then that is like false because you have to obey the entire law.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Now, interesting.
I'll say this too to connect it. That's why I think really, maybe we take a stream and just read all of Galatians. It's been really, it's recently for me, it's really connected and really helped me in my personal faith. Because I was trying to communicate this last time. I think I would say as Westerners, but I think this is the human problem. And it was the Jews' problem in the Old Testament. And it's like, and it seems like the thing to do. Because you know, like you're reading the law, you're like, oh, God wants me, this madman just wants me to be killing lambs all day. He's like, but really, like everything that God has been doing, it says like the law is just a shadow of what's to come. And even I may have read it earlier, but it may not have made sense. Like when I first went to Galatians, I forgot what I read, but he was trying to say like the faith and Paul in Galatians saying like the faith and the law, they don't contradict. He's like, because Abraham was made right with God before the law. And it's like, God can't contradict himself. It was saying that like the purpose of the law is to show us our sin.
So here's my big question though, because we're talking about the law. So what he's referring to is the original law of Moses, which is, you know, in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and, you know, the original, like
some of the tough stuff,
the Torah. What is so special about the Torah? Because when you actually look at like ancient Hittite law, the law of Hammurabi, there are like, and I will provide this actually. So and I can reference it in the link if we post this, but there are like about 5 to 8 different law codes in the time period, not during Moses' time period, because that's a little
just
bit
in history,
sketchy. It's like during and you can say like during the time of like the Davidic like period, where they're all the same. And have you read, and David, because you're a friend, we are not going to pull up the laws in Leviticus that talk about slavery and women bleeding on their wedding night,
well, that's
or getting stoned. Well, that's Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
Well, it's also Leviticus. It's actually
is it?
Or stone, or in the New Testament where Jesus says that you should stone your child if they're disobedient, because it was a law back in Leviticus. So we're like we're talking philosophically about like these laws, and we're saying like, you know what, the laws, you should follow them, but it's not the thing that it defines everything. It's the faith. But when it really boils down to it, those laws that we're just like talking about, and this is what happens in church, is like the pastor gets up there and they're like, the laws, and it's not all about the law. It's about faith and the laws and the faith and the faith. But the laws are sick, man. They're like late Bronze Age disgusting.
Absolutely.
And so like, why did God, now here's my big question. And I have to ask one thing first. Is Jesus the Son the same as Jesus the Father?
God the Father.
God the Father.
Are we hopping into Trinity, huh?
Yeah, we're hopping into the Trinity.
No.
Well, it helps because some people differentiate old and new.
Right.
Yahweh
but some
versus
people
Jesus.
are, and I'm not trying to have you commit heresy with like, dualism or anything. But like, did Jesus, and I'm not even going to get into, did Jesus talk to himself in the Garden of Gethsemane? We're not going to go there.
Sure.
But did Jesus make the same laws about slavery and women bleeding on their wedding night and the whole selling your daughter thing? And keep in mind, I get it, because we're all intelligent here. Sure. We all know he didn't say you had to do it, although there is one where I can probably find it pretty quickly where he does actually say like, do this, but he condones it. He doesn't not. So what would be more impressive to me when we're talking about the law is if Jesus, assuming he's God the Father also, that talks to himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, if this schizophrenic person, like, why didn't he just say back in those days, like the Quran argues that Allah knew science before we knew it in the future? They've got a pretty good argument there, or a better one. Why didn't they just say, you know what, guys, just like he said, don't have any other gods before me, don't create a graven image, don't own other people as property. Like, what's with the old law? Like, why are we even talking about this law in the first place? Like, why are we reconciling this law? It's almost like an apologetic in and of itself. What's up with that?
That's a big question.
What was the last sentence you just said? Because I was thinking something, then I had a text.
Well, I'm like, what? Like, it's like an apologetic in and of itself, where we're discussing like, Paul says, you don't really need all the law. It's about faith, but still have the law because this matters. But why are we talking about the law at all? Because it's kind of disgusting. And if we think that Jesus is God, as proposed by John, student of Philo, why do we think that like the law is disgusting? So
I agree.
Like, did Jesus write it? Because Jesus is God. Jesus is the Father. They're the same.
I think that's a common consideration. Now, I wonder, I want to answer that, but I think obviously, like when we go to those scriptures that you wrestle with, I wrestle with, it would take a lot longer. But I think the core is already.
That's the next session.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, I would like that actually.
But I think the core here, kind of to that answer is even right here, because I think how we'll interpret it is he's basically saying, like, listen, if you circumcise yourself, Christ is of no benefit to you. Like, that has no morality compass to it, right? I would argue even slightly barbaric, you know? Like we cutting genitals essentially. Like why?
Dude,
You know?
in the Old Testament, the angels are circumcised. They go so far as to say not only the humans, but the angels by Yahweh are circumcised.
Right. Right. Now, some of the laws that I
Take some
know,
serious scissors for that action.
of course, the ones that you're talking about,
The seraphim?
I can't think of the symbolism for them. The circumcision has a symbolism of something new. But anyways, it's like the laws still are like, you know, sacrificing animals, all this stuff, right? But normally when we interpret it in the pastor, we're talking like pure morals. But it seems like right here, this isn't even a morality issue. And that's why I was saying, like, it's very interesting because Paul is fighting for this. But like, why fight for that? Because that's the Jewish
I think he's trying to break away from it. I think he's in a point where he's like, but here's the thing. It's like, do you believe that Jesus is God? So first of all, that's the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that there's one God?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you believe that Jesus is God?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you believe that Yahweh is God?
Correct. Yeah.
So do you believe that Jesus wrote the laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy and in Exodus also, where it talks about things that are the laws that are condoning barbarism? And do you believe that, because you've read the Bible enough to know the worst bits, I assume you've read like the cannibalism, the Amalekites, and all the horrific things. And that's the part that gave me whiplash when I was a Christian. I was like,
as it should.
How is this Jesus that's saying, give the freaking cloak off your back?
Right.
The same Jesus that says, this land. And by the way, now we know, because like I live in the United States of America, and it is cringy to me to think that we came in and wiped out the Native Americans as much as we, or put them in their little sections.
Little reservations, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Yahweh commanded. Now, we can do the same thing every single, including, I hate going to this reference. I'm going to find a better one because.
What are you about to say?
What's he going to say?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to predict this.
It's the whole Nazi
thing. You didn't
do
it.
Here's the thing. They
didn't
took
do it.
It's been done over and over and over again. And it's just the most recent one where it's like, it's probably not the most recent, where you take a people group and you say, those weren't people. Those were animals. Those weren't people. Those were savages. Those weren't people. So when I was a Christian, I was like, oh, well, the Amalekites, those were just like, they savages. Were all, even the babies were terrible. Like, we knew that God knew that when those babies grew up, they were going to be sinful, non-believing, treacherous people. So they weren't really people. It's like you dehumanize a group to be able to like justify genocide. So if you believe that the loving Jesus of the New Testament is Yahweh, how can you possibly read hopefully you don't read the Old Testament, but if you do, how do you read the Old Testament and be like, wait a minute, I mean, do you just, because what I did was I went, I just put it off into the closet, and I was just like, whoop, that door. I like the loving Jesus because I'm a good guy.
Well, sure, everybody would, right? But then I feel like that would be a stronger conversation, not to address it, but I think I don't want to miss the point here, because this is something that I recently came to.
Okay. I do want you to finish your point. Yeah, finish your point. Yeah.
Paul's, in this instance, he's not even addressing morality.
But he is addressing the law.
He's talking about the law, right? Now, the law does encompass rituals. It encompasses the
law of Moses.
Yeah, but the law of Moses it's morality. It's coming up in a new society. It's priestly rituals of how to sacrifice animals. It's all of this. But he's like, even if he caught them like, I'm sacrificing the lamb to like worship God and stuff, and like this will make me right with God, he's like, no, Like, don't do that. And I think this is the to me, I feel like this is the more trickier part than trying to reference how to or reconcile how to live through the things that are happening in the Bronze Age of the Old Testament, right? I think this is the tripping point for even active professing Christians, because it's like I feel like people in churches they miss this point. Like instead of say circumcision, it's like, hey, well, I'm doing this stuff, but they experience no freedom in Christ, right? That like Paul is talking about. And it has nothing to do with like, are they smart enough? Are they good enough? It's you have to come to the point like what Paul is trying to say and the scriptures are trying to say. The whole purpose, what Jesus is coming to do, if the New Testament is true, is that like on Judgment Day, it's going to be like, hey, how's it going? Finally got to meet you, God. And it's like, I did my best to be a good person. It's what we wrestle with, like, why is my good not good enough? Because that seems sense was like, dang, I get the whole life. I at
Well, I
least
think
did
that's
it,
a human thing too.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. But I think the worst part is like almost like Paul talking to this Galatians, like they're getting tripped up. Obviously, they're genuine, they're believers, right? But he's so frustrated because like, no, don't miss this point. And I'm so upset that these false teachers are like messing you up, right? But he's obviously, I used to think it'd come off with anger, but he's actually very passionate, right?
Do you know what one of the major false teachers though of that time that was emerging, and it eventually became like Marcionism, was that the early Christian movements were latching on to Jesus. And by the way, I would love to talk to you just about Paul sometime, because I have my whole story, like theory about Paul. But like you have like Marcionism and all these early church movements that were non-Pauline that eventually became heresies, but they were all at the same time large. And that's why everyone's worried about, hey, don't talk to those false gospels, or as Paul would say, the super apostles. Don't talk to these guys. Don't talk to those guys. But a lot of the stuff that was happening was that they were reading the Old Testament, and they were reading in modern Greek society. So if you can imagine, this is the time of Aristotle. Okay. So we've gone from Socrates in 400 BC. We've gone from Plato. We're Aristotle. We're into like Zeno in like Stoicism. So we're in like an enlightened period. And then they start to read the texts in Greek because they had the Septuagint, which don't get me started on Matthew and his mistranslations of the Hebrew text, because he only knew the Septuagint. But you've got these like like people reading the Old Testament, the Septuagint, and they're like, what the hell? Like, you're talking about this and what? Like, it was like Yahweh was barbaric. And they were literally saying that they called Yahweh the demiurge. And they were believing that there was like an all-powerful being up here. And again, this is not real. I don't believe in this. I'm not Gnostic. Like, but they were trying, again, it was like an apologetic. They were trying to say, okay, here's the deal. Jesus is real because Jesus is love. Jesus is like Confucius, Buddha, Hillel, Simon Magus. Take any of the, actually not Simon Magus, sorry. Take any of these like people of the time or pre-time that were preaching a gospel of love and like human like love. This is a vastly different story than this barbaric Yahweh character. There's no way he was the same person, because at this time in the early Christian movement and in all of the Gospels, there's no such thing as Trinitarianism. That was Tertullian in like freaking 300 CE. So this was like 300 or not 300, 200 whatever, 70 years later. Like they were like trying to reconcile this. They were saying, listen, here's the deal. There's this all-powerful holy God. There was this demiurge that created the earth, Yahweh, because technically, if you actually know the Hebrew, it's not in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Technically, and viewers and people want to look, it's in the beginning, like God took what was there and started forming the heavens and the earth. That's where that whole thing came from. It's like Yahweh took what was there and started forming it. They're like, Yahweh was a product of like the good God, and like Jesus was actually from the good God. And Paul was saying, don't listen to this, like blah blah blah. It's actually really was from the Jewish God, because of course Paul was like a leader in synagogues. He was
Mhm.
of the Jewish faith.
Mhm.
And that's what carried forward. Of course, the victor writes history. But like,
Mhm. Mhm.
how do we connect Jesus, because we're talking about the law. All this has to do with the law
Mhm.
and whether we follow the law and what about the law.
Right. We all know the pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, how do we connect Yahweh that wrote this barbaric law
Mhm.
to Jesus of love? And that they're all the same and they all connect, and take and pick what you choose of the law that you want. Like, don't do circumcision, but do.
No, that's the thing. That's not, I think that's the trip up. It's not about the essence of what they're saying is that, like, if you break one law, you break all of them. That's a real core thing to sit with. It may seem unfair, but it's like that's what they're saying. You know, it's like you break one law,
So how
you
do you
break all
feel
of them.
about that?
I personally feel indifferent.
Hmm.
I think of it this way, and I don't want that to sound heartless. And I because what I've, again, the least of the testimonies is like the personal freedom, and I've never really kind of gone into that. But I'm reading Paul, and I'm like, oh, I think I kind of know what he's talking about. What was I going to say? Oh, how do I feel? You remember a couple years ago there was like a WNBA player. I think it was like Brittany Griner or something.
Yeah, I do actually.
And she was in
Which
some
is
other
weird that I got
country.
a reference, but yes.
Yeah, she was in some other country, and she was like smoking weed or something. They're like, "You
Mhm.
going to jail?"
Yeah, it
And then
became
we
a
were like,
huge thing.
"Right." And then, in my opinion, I'm like, why is she in jail for? Like, it was like she was in there for a long time. I don't know if she was ever getting out. They were treating her like she was Pablo Escobar. It was crazy.
Right. Well,
Um,
and I don't know about you, but a lot of the states around us, it's completely legal now. So
right. And
Right,
of
so
of
no big
all
deal.
the drugs, with Amsterdam being nearby, and it's
Mhm.
like of weed. And
Yeah.
she probably didn't even know the law. Like, if she probably knew it, she would have been like, I'm not going to do that. But she didn't know the law, right?
Is this like a
Well, I'm trying to connect it.
parallel? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
actually, I
I'm
get where you're
interested in
going. Yeah,
this.
yeah, go. Yeah, that's good.
And America, I think Trump was probably in office and did a crazy trade. It was like some massive like gun smuggling guy. We like traded him and made
Get her
him free
back.
to get her back, which is crazy because like no one watches the WNBA. I would be like, I wouldn't have made that trade. Like, if we're talking about it was Kobe Bryant. No, I'm just kidding. But I was like, we didn't even know about Britney till that happened. But
Right.
it was a thing, but it was like she broke their law and that's
Mhm.
their rule, you know. I don't think it's fair, but it is what it is, right? And it's like, imagine Britney's in here. They're like, you know, she's chilling with murderers, she's chilling with adulterers. And it's like, it may not be fair, but they're like, yeah, we have a law here. You break one of them, you break them all. You're like, all right, stupid Russia. But it's like, well, Russia runs things. But Russia's like, also, I want to show you your creator and like all this stuff and this evidence and blah blah blah. Do you just believe them? And it was like, nah. And be like, all right. Now that may be like a super simplification here, right?
No, it's
Yeah,
appealing to Job.
I mean, it's an appeal, and I get honestly, I get the attraction to making that comparison. But if I were to compare that to some of the laws of Moses that I just can't actually stomach,
Sure.
I just don't know if it's enough.
Well, I feel like what you guys are talking about is leaning to like, is the law fair or the morality of God in itself, right?
And what you're saying is it doesn't matter if it's fair, the law's the law, and so that's what happens.
I'm more interested in
Kinda,
like the
not necessarily.
terrible things in the Old Testament. Sorry, I was just gonna like, I'm not gonna like read them, but like some of these verses, like in the laws of
Keep hitting that with my
in the
hand.
laws of Moses, are so Bronze Age. And here's the thing. Here's where I think that if there's any Muslims on, by the way, we've got quite a few viewers. If there are any Muslims on, and you want to like shout out to Allah on this deal, go for it. Because here's where I think, and we're not going to talk about Aisha and the whole underage thing, but
Are we shouting out to? Okay.
Okay, no, we're not actually shouting out, but what I'm saying is like
You're
the
making choices
Quran,
right now.
the Quran has some points where it says that, and keep in mind, dude, it was what, like 600 CE. So like the Quran has like 600 plus years on like the last New Testament book. So it can come in and say, we knew this science before no one else. And so, oh yeah, well, of course, the Old Testament didn't know about the firmament, which I would love to get into about like the whole flat earth situation in the Old Testament. But it's like, wouldn't Jesus, Yahweh, wouldn't he be able originally, when they first wrote these laws, to say, don't own humans as property? Right. You know what? I'm gonna, if I was a god, now actually, I'm gonna tie this back to your Job appeal. If I was a god, I would not say law. Actually, I might say this: law number 1, have no other gods before me. I would actually do that. Okay.
You're not.
But what I'm saying is, I would throw in there: don't own humans as property. I took you out of Egypt. Don't own humans as property.
Sure.
Like, why could? But instead he says, and I'll start scrolling the obligatory Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, slavery laws of Moses.
I don't think we need to do that with David. I think
agreed,
and I think we've touched on that a little bit.
Okay.
Previously.
So where would you go with this?
I would say, I'm trying to decide if the point that David's trying to make right now, and that's what I actually kind of want to clarify with him, is not necessarily about whether or not we even agree with the laws or whether or not we even think that they're right or wrong, but the fact that they exist. And to his point with like Brittany Griner, like, we may or may not agree with the fact that that law existed and it put her in prison and we had to fight to get her back, but it does exist. And so the repercussions exist. So to that point, it would be like, whether or not we agree with the laws of Moses and whether or not those translate into the New Testament, and this point, like, we may or may not agree with them, but they're there and we have to deal with them.
Yeah. And I want to say this too. Again, these are the wrestling points into, like, I think this is a fiber, like a little small cornerstone that I think Paul is fighting for, though. Because again, fighting for circumcision, she's very arbitrary. You know, it's like, that should be the good thing.
That's the one detail, right?
Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
that's the Jewish law. Sure, like, Gentiles, be like the other Jews. You're not, like, it's a celebration that the Jews or Gentiles are worshiping the same God now, right? Like, why are we tripping up on that?
Right. Good point.
But like, I think Rocky was saying this, and I think this is a Christian dilemma. What's the verse? As much as I'll do context, I'll just do a verse.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Galatians 3:19.
Bringing it up.
Galatians night.
I love Galatians, by the way.
In Galatians chapter 3:19.
I'm bringing up all Galatians. I'll put it on the screen here. Hold on.
And this may answer your question, because we keep talking about, like, what the heck with this law. And he talks about it previously, but he goes, why then was the law given? 19.
Here we are. Okay.
Why then was the law given? It was given alongside the promise to show people their sins. And like, it's like, that's why it's there. Like, he's telling you that's why it's there, right? And
so the point, I was raised to understand that, and I believed that the Israelites appreciated the law, and I understand why. Like, it's sort of like, if I loved my parents to the, like, I just love them, like, they're like my God. If my parents were like God, I love them. I want to know how to make them happy. I want to know. And so if my parents gave me a set of rules, I would be like, thank you, because I want to know how to make you happy. That's the way I understood the law. And that's what I feel like this states in a good way. It's like, why was the law given? Because it was to show me where I was wrong, so that I can know how to do right to make you happy. Is that kind of like what?
I think that's an interpretation. Not saying that I don't even know technically. I wouldn't. Maybe my church taught it, maybe it didn't, because I picked that up again as well. I think sometimes when people are talking scripture, it's like you'll say something you're like, "Oh, I'm picking up what you're putting down here." It's like, "Oh no," and this is kind of the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make with Paul. Like,
Yeah.
but it does allude to that, right? Even in Galatians, it does say, I don't remember if we read it, but it specifically says like the law, even though it doesn't save us anymore now that we're in this new covenant with God, he keeps making new covenants with people. It's like it did have a purpose. Part of it's to show us our sin, and it says it was like a guardian until like there was real freedom came. These are all shadows, these are all kind of symbols to point you more to Jesus, like Passover. Like we don't do Passover anymore for like certain reasons. Like, well, I guess it was a 1 minute in Exodus, but it was like the Lamb of God. It's like he's trying to like, hey, it's Jesus, is Jesus. Even circumcision is supposed to represent like the circumcision of the heart, having a new heart. It's like I don't care about your penis. And so it's pointing to these things. It's like it's pointing to Jesus. And I'll give you another example from the chaos of church. And again, when I hear these stories, I try to also think like, what else could have happened? And in this instance, the other as I try to think of like, oh, were they actually good parents? Because the truth of it is you never really know how people are behind closed doors. But there was we're at like a little men's group. Again, I'm talking
the
about
show
little
can be
Christian,
really good.
talking about Christianese over here, our little men's group.
I love it.
And guys talking, he's having a rough time. Everybody's talking about their rough things, maybe vaguely, maybe just whatever, because we all said we were going to be here, and we were the real Christians because we showed up at 7 p.m. to talk for an hour.
Sure.
And he was like, yeah, my son, I think his son's like 18. He's like, yeah, my son, pretty sad. He was like, I found out my son wants to go to Washington State, and which is, I'm on the East Coast, and so it's very far away. And he's like, yeah, but I found out from his coworker, he didn't tell me. That made me kind of sad. I was like, we're like, oh man, it is kind of sad, but I was thinking like teenagers, they be young and dumb type of stuff. So 3 to 4 months later, he's like, yeah, my son's at Washington State, and he's like broken about it. I'm like, well, let him grow, I didn't say anything, I don't think, but it's kind of like let him spread his wings, and he's trying to just explore life.
Give him a little space.
Give him some space. He's grown now. Like let him, But it's weird because he's like only working at Walmart. It was like, well, I don't know if you had to go all across the country just to go work at Walmart. But he's like, yeah, yeah, he doesn't call me or my wife back at all. Like he's like, and this is the hitting point. He's like, he doesn't call me or my wife back anymore. And he's like, we haven't talked to him in like 6 months. Like even to this day, it's probably been like a year and a half ago. They still haven't talked to him. He's like, the only communication we have with him is we're like joint owners on his bank account. So we just follow his bank account to make sure he's okay. And I feel like that's kind of that parallel with God. Like for some of us, it's like, hey, it's almost like God has pushed us in a corner with the law to be like, hey, you're sinful. And like, you need me. Like you need me. And we'll think that like this dictator thing, right? But then you also have to see like there's a bloody Jesus on this cross, right? Like he didn't just leave you. He's like, I'm doing this. I'm like 40-day fasting. I'm fighting Satan. I'm taking all this ridicule. I'm getting flogged. I'm sweating blood in Gethsemane because this had to happen, right? According to, these scriptures. He's like, this has to happen because I want you back. Like it's a very strong statement. But for us, we're like, well, if I please you enough, but also I don't really think you're my dad. And you'd be like, wait, what? Hold on. No, well, let's establish this part, and you're like, well, no, and actually, whatever. I can do all the stuff that you taught me, and I don't even like there's some disconnects that happen. But essentially in Galatians, it's saying like, hey, the law is here. It did protect Israel at some point, but it wasn't really the true thing. It talks about in 2 Corinthians 2. It's like it always says like it's something greater, and it's like kind of pointing you to Jesus, but it's like, y'all, that stuff's dead. It was like if it worked, there'd be no need for a new covenant,
Right.
Like it had a purpose, but like it's weak. It's earthly. This is something supernatural and spiritual happening. This is your inner being. And what he's saying is like it shows you your sin on Judgment Day. We did good stuff. I think every person at some point has done good stuff, to be fair. No one's like, even baby Hitler wasn't Hitler as a baby, like,
Yeah.
but it's like,
Jeffrey Dahmer had some really good intentions, supposedly.
Absolutely. And maybe he had a
Technically,
problem.
Jeffrey Dahmer is in heaven. Last I heard, actually.
He may or may not, right?
But here's my
well, let me just finish this last thing.
Yeah. Let's finish that. Yeah. Let's do a little summary.
It's like on Judgment Day, just like whatever the commandments are, if it's all 600 or if it's just the major 10. It's like we did our good stuff. We loved our people. We loved our enemies. We planted the orphanages. We even decided to get circumcised at the age of 35 just to honor our God, right? And he's like, all right. And he's like, I really appreciate that. He's like, how many lies have you told? And he'd be like, all right, have you lusted? How many times you lust? You'd be like, you ever got angry? I think you're Jeffrey Dahmer. You'd be like, well, okay. And then it kind of shakes. It was like, you ever use the Lord's name in vain? And you'd be like, you ever had any God beside me? And you'd be like, he was like, well, let me go to these other 500 too. Because I didn't see you ever kill a sheep. And you'd be like, well, and then at part of you at the same time, you'd be like, well, I don't think this is fair. But I know for me personally, there are laws that I don't agree with, even laws that I am unaware of. But I know that I fight laws that even I think I shouldn't violate. I think that's what it's saying. Like, I violate the laws. Like, I know I shouldn't lie, but I will lie at some point, right? I know I shouldn't lust, but I'll be the top commenter on Pornhub one day. It'll be like, I don't want to be angry with my father, but sometimes I want him to pay for his actions, And it's like, I am guilty by this God-given law in Russia to this Brittany Griner thing, whether I agree with it or not. If it's the law, it's the law. And if anybody ever makes it in heaven, I was thinking about this. Because I was going through some crap with just external stuff. It was insane and disturbing. And from these little crazy Christians, make me like look inwardly, like maybe I need to go to another church at least. But I was like, if anyone makes it to heaven, whether you're on this new earth and you're just sitting in the field or something, you finally see God face to face. And it's not like God hates you, because I used to fight. I think even any genuine person, but really someone trying to fight for their faith, it's like, man, does God love me? Be about your day. Maybe I do some more stuff. I got to build this orphanage so he'll love me. I got to earn your love.
Right.
And it's like, bloody Jesus. Like,
literally,
he loves you. Like, if that's true, he loves you. If he's not a lunatic, if he's not someone trying to get something out of you and have this revolution to bring new Israel, if he is God, he didn't just come to be like, hey, I just wanted to show you and I'm out. He's like, I'm trying to bring you back, right? And if that's true, it's a purpose. And if you're sitting in heaven, if I'm sitting in heaven, and I'm not even like a staunch person of like, you got to have all the docs, you got to get all the right stuff. Again, we're getting this all panic and tizzy, because even
do you have your real ID to get in?
Right. Even in Jesus's era, you got your Pharisees, your Sadducees, your Zealots. There's so many people. They're the Jews. They should know. They didn't even know. They had their multiple denominations and they're fighting each other, all type of stuff. Some's for power. It's all different. They're all still looking for a Messiah. But it's like, if you're sitting on heaven, you're like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I don't deserve to be here.
Here's my question. And I don't want to end it on this. If you want to, like,
sure.
But if we want to end it and then come back, because we're gonna always post. My question is this. And you now have the dog in the picture, by the way. This is our lovely
wow, gland
Stinky
itself.
Butt.
That's right.
Stinky. We're gonna call
glandular.
Her Stinky. So how or why is your version of Jesus different than the Book of Mormon, or Joseph Smith's Jesus of Latter-day Saints? How is your God different than Muhammad splitting the moon in two with Allah? How is Vishnu different? Because all of these books profess the exact same thing. Confucius, phenomenal philosophy, and by the way, more coherent, because there's not the problem I addressed earlier where you have Paul, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, Revelation. Oh, I didn't mean to actually bonk her in the face. Revelation is like over here. But Revelation is technically more with like the Essenes and the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Wow.
But what I'm getting at is like, why Christianity? Because all like you can go as deep as you're going. So you are like
I'm not even on the preaching staff.
No. Yeah,
exactly. I just like, pushed the light on.
Down like if you took like Buddhist like texts, or heck, I'm right now I'm into Socrates. If you started going down Platonism, oh my God, dude, I could talk for years and say, but this is what Plato really meant, and this is like actually, but you take this dialogue and you compare it to this dialogue. It's like Galatians versus James. The Republic versus, it's like you're down this rabbit hole with like these texts, which is great because that's the text. And what's funny is like my dad, who I hope never finds this YouTube channel,
my dad either.
He's like, all he knows is this. He's like so good at this that if he would do this, oh shit! Like all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. But Bart Ehrman. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of
I agree.
context out there. So I would leave it at this. If we have, which I desire upon anything else, to like have another conversation. Let's definitely. I would love to have another conversation. It would be like outside of the this, which is just basically like these texts. Because like, let's get into like Daniel and Maccabees. They were both written at the same freaking time. 167. Like the Hasmonean dynasty probably wrote the book of Daniel, or at least the second part after the stories, right? So like, after the stories. So there was like the stories of Daniel, and then there was like the prophecies. It's like if you get meta outside of the tunnel vision, the world just gets different when you're thinking about the text. Is all I'm throwing out.
Absolutely. You have to give me time to read all this, and since I'm not an avid reader, it'll probably be about 3 years. But I gave you one book.
There's plenty of YouTube videos.
Sure,
also,
that's true.
Actually, you know what I would suggest? There's a YouTube channel called Deconstruction Zone. Dude, just YouTube Deconstruction Zone. The guy who like hosts it, like we know him personally because we like love his channel. But anyways, dude, just YouTube it, Deconstruction Zone. Justin is his name, and it will, if nothing else, it will sharpen your whip. Like I'm not saying you need to
think about what you might want to think about.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah.
And it will also help you be able to like it's like the master apologetic, because once you hear what he's saying, you're like, oh, I need to like be able to like follow these, because I was an apologist. So
well, I feel like we went a lot of places. I feel like that was really fun. It was really good.
I freaking love
we were tired when we started like an hour and a half ago. We should probably cut it.
We do need to cut it.
Can I have 3 minutes?
Absolutely. But only if you say hi.
Hi, Glandy.
Hi. Yeah.
So the essence where I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, you apparently set her off.
She's louder than she looks.
So that essence in Galatians where he's talking about being free, he's comparing Isaac and Ishmael. He's talking about the law, but then he's saying like Isaac, he's like, you guys are like Isaac, and like, I don't know if he's like descendants of Isaac or something, but he's trying to say there's a way that man tries to get right with God. He's kind of alluding to this Moses thing and Ishmael. And so there's a way that God has people get right with him through God's way. I guess that's a kind of base point, right? But then if you go to Genesis, wherever Abraham sacrifices Isaac, maybe 20.
Got you.
Kind of horrifying also, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, without question. And they put it nicely. They're like, Abraham's faith was just tested.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah. Can you imagine being Isaac?
One of the greatest stories of all time, though. And that's why...
No, it is a
dude,
great story.
I love... The Bible is my literal favorite book. Bar none. Bar absolute none. The Bible is my favorite, absolute favorite book. Yeah. Anyways. Genesis 2:22.
Yeah, let me see where to start. Let's do...
It's already in Genesis 2? Genesis doesn't mess around. That's why I love Genesis, besides the doublets, which we started talking about with the documentary hypothesis. Yeah. Which, David, are you familiar with the documentary hypothesis? Okay. That's a tongue twister.
Let's start on verse 1. It says Genesis 22, sorry.
22.
Yeah. Genesis 22, verse 1. Oh, I think you may have to throw it up to share.
Yep, I got you. Okay.
Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. They were just talking about Moriah in Galatians. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you. The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son, Isaac. Verse 2 is very particular to me because this is a purely Jewish text.
You've got only son.
Yeah.
You've got was there a donkey involved?
There was a donkey.
Yep, and a sacrifice.
Oh, there's about to be a donkey.
There's a sacrifice and there's a donkey.
Well, the next morning there's a donkey.
But how many children does Abraham have?
Well,
do we know actually?
Wait. He had with Hagar, he had Ishmael before he had Isaac with Sarah because he didn't actually have faith and he went ahead and just screwed his concubine.
Absolutely. Which isn't a bad deal. Like if I'm Abraham and my wife's like, hey, I need you to go sleep with this woman, I'd be like, I'll make a struggle.
Did get pissed later.
She did.
And then was a bitch to Hagar.
Absolutely.
Who then ran off.
She was.
Then God was like,
actually. Now it's all coming back.
Anyways, but go ahead.
But this by itself is a Jewish text, right? Like this is not technically a Christian text. We just
No, this is way before Christianity. Yeah.
We just took it. But Isaac is the younger son.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Jacob is the younger son.
Okay.
With Jacob and Esau.
Interesting.
But verse 2 says, take your son, your only son. This is not just an NLT translation.
Because the other one is illegitimate.
One is the son that God promised in God's way, that like it says in Galatians. But it was talking about something else. It was comparing the law, and it was like Ishmael and Isaac, being made right with God through the law in the human way, being made right with God in God's way. So I'll keep going.
But isn't that kind of gross? Like, sorry, Ishmael, you're just like a bastard.
No, because also God does bless Ishmael and Hagar. But he's trying to make a point, and it's not even Abraham's fault because God made him a promise. And if I was Abraham, I was like, I could see Abraham like, oh, maybe this is what he means. Like he told me,
Abraham didn't have a lot of faith.
I don't know if it's a faith thing. To be fair, there's not much about God before this. It's like he's old. He's like, bro, I can't have children. God's like, yes, you can. And
he didn't believe God, and he didn't believe that God was going to literally give him a son. So then he went into his concubine because also Sarah didn't believe.
Right. No, these are years later. It's not a belief thing. I'm saying it's very interesting that they're saying your only son. What God is saying that like Isaac is purely a miracle through God. Ishmael is not that he hates Ishmael. Ishmael is like Abraham trying to do it through the effort that he thinks works. But it's a very interesting through a human context.
It just is also interesting to me because it seems like Abraham doesn't have a lot of faith.
No, Abraham has a lot of faith, but it's not about Abraham's faith either. It's like God is I'm saying like it's very particular. God is consistently, people, it'll kind of be the out. They were like, oh, of course the Christians will read it this way because blah, 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 and this. they'll twist the prophecies because the Jews weren't seeing it this way. But there's a constant in scripture of like there's always a strong symbolism to Jesus. But this one is this would be in all ways very incorrect because Isaac is the younger child. He's not the only son. And they make a very strong parallel. In the Christian context, this is a parallel for obviously Jesus. And it goes on.
Wait.
How is this a parallel?
How is that a parallel?
Sorry, I didn't get that connection.
I don't get that. Yeah.
Abraham's the father. He's asked to sacrifice his son, his one and only son, whom you love so much.
But he technically had another son. It was just with a different woman, but her vagina didn't count because she was the concubine.
Her vagina
by the way,
didn't.
Concubine is a sex slave.
Yeah. That aside, the point is
sex slave aside.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But hear me. It's exit out all the morality, right? Like I'm with you. There's some crazy stuff. There's some stuff that's like it seems.
I like to just push morality aside when I read the Bible.
No. No, this is a very strong point that this is my woe with my own Christian brothers, because I think there's a real freedom, right? And I see so many people walk away and I feel like I'm the only one around that has freedom. And it's saying this in Galatians. I would really encourage you just to read and compare to, because he's technically not, when he's talking about Abraham and Ishmael, he doesn't say specifically just about Jesus, but he does say like what he's trying to compare with the law. He's like, and the circumcision thing that he's tripping about, he's like, you guys are trying to get right the human way, the law way. He was like, no, the law is just to show you that you're Brittany Griner, right? That's all it's here for. It was to protect you for a little bit, but he's like, Jesus has always been the answer. He's always been the answer. And I'll prove it to you because God is doing something miraculously each time. Because if you don't have that context of Jesus, this makes no sense. And this is another thing that you can throw of being like, yeah, this Jewish text is extremely barbaric. What insane person would sacrifice their one and only son, or two sons, or son, period? Any crazy person would do that, so that hears from God, goes to court, and goes to go to death row, right?
Would you sacrifice your son, like if God told you in the prayer? Let's not go there. Continue.
No, hear me.
I'm not trying to derail. Go ahead.
No, I hear you, and trust me, with all my heart, I hear what you're saying. But
but let's not derail. Go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
He's talking about his only son. In the Jewish text, that doesn't make sense. And that's not something that like the Jews in the middle of.
I think the rabbis would very much disagree with you, sir. I'm sorry. I'm gonna pull a flag on the play and say that the rabbis would say the F word and say, dude, this is the pivot point of our religion or our faith is Abraham, and the fact that he took Isaac up, because he was like, this is what we are about, like.
Right, but to be fair, like, what if it really isn't a case where the Christians are just trying to redo something? I'm just not saying that because I'm a Christian. Like, I'm trying to connect the point of what Paul's saying, right? And because we're asking, like, what about this? What about this? What about this? But like, this is a strong point, and not to offend the Jews or anything, because I'm out here praying to a bloody Jew, that like, it's not off that they keep getting it wrong anyways. You know what I mean? Like, prophets are dying. They kill the Messiah. It's not because they're stupid. It's like they didn't get it either, but it's not their fault for not getting it. It's very human. But the thing that makes Christianity so amazing to me, I haven't even told you stuff that I've been doing in my life, which again, I think is the weaker testimony, is that like, I really think this God carved out in time. And of course, anyone can say this, but like, he's trying to make something very evident, and it's much more beyond than apologetics in your brain here. It's like God is like, this is my way. Will you accept it? But I want to go on here. Sometime later, I'll just start back on verse 1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son. Yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you. The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took two of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Stay here with stay here with the donkey. Abraham told the servants, the boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them walked on together, Isaac turned to Abraham and said, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. We have the fire and the wood. The boy said, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son, Abraham answered. And they both walked on together. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven. Abraham, Abraham, yes, Abraham replied, here I am. Don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Do not hurt him in any way. For now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son. Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in the place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide. To this day, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. And as a Christian who believes in Jesus, and even before being a Christian, the Abraham Isaac story is insane.
Yeah.
Not in like a cool 90s lingo, insane, radical, cool dude. I mean, like, it's insane.
But can you imagine putting yourself in this position?
Who would kill their own son?
Who would get to this point and then be like, oh, good, I don't have to do it?
Yeah. Why would God tell someone to do that? And like, to your points of like these things in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, slavery, this part, I'm like, this is another thing you add in there. But
absolutely.
What if he's trying to tell you about Jesus? Like, seriously, like the God in general, this whole story, this one and only son, Isaac holding the wood on his shoulders, the ram's head getting stuck in the thorns of thickets, you know, this ram representing, you know, the crown of thorns. And that could be conspiracy theory, deeper stuff. But
no, man, it was written like 600 years after the fact. So like,
absolutely,
if I'm a halfway decent author and I want to spin a tale, why wouldn't I just write whatever I want?
Right. But this one and only son thing, it still won't check out.
Yeah.
Especially if you check out the concubine.
Right. But you can't check out the concubine.
Well, no, we did, because technically he had two sons.
That's what I'm saying.
Ishmael.
Right.
So.
Oh, yeah, you're saying the same thing.
Yeah. But I'm like, he has two sons. That'd be grammatically incorrect, no matter how they came. It's like.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Why didn't Yahweh do what he did with Abraham with Jesus?
He did. He wasn't as barbaric to be like, kill your son, right? Like, he's
he
like,
literally did.
No, he didn't. He found a ram instead of his son. So what I'm saying is, if you're an all-powerful God, meaning you can do anything, why do you have to kill a person or your son or a child? Why wouldn't you just find the ram in the thicket and then everything's all good? Because technically in the Old Testament, Hezekiah, there's another one too. There's actually 2 or 3. I'll find it for our next conversation. But there were 2 or 3 at least people who God finds blameless and says, you are completely blameless and you're sinless. Boom. Why didn't Yahweh, instead of sending his son, why didn't he say, instead of that, I'm going to find this ram in the thicket? You know what I mean? Like, does it have to be my son? But I get it. It makes a really good Mel Gibson movie. Because if you whip a human to pieces and then you make it a story, like, the no greater thing of a man to lay down his life. We all love the trope. It's a great trope. But it's like, come on, guys. Like, why is that different than, like, any other religion. Like, why is Christianity real? It's great. It's great story. It's great theology. But why is this real? Like, especially because there's so many inconsistencies. Like, we haven't even gotten into the contradictions, which are
Maybe.
vast. Which
I
you're adept enough to know how vast they are. That like,
but I would argue Genesis 22 verse 2 is a contradiction just in the Jewish faith alone. Because he had two sons. And why do they make an emphasis in every translation that says your son, your one and only son, like King James?
I know there's better contradictions than that, but like, why? Like,
but if Jesus is in play, it's not a contradiction. It's trying to point you to see it.
Oh,
like
Abraham. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, David. Everyone else might buy that, and if they do, I might be totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if the whole thing is like, I don't know, that one's a stretch for me. I'm just saying that one's a stretch for me.
Really?
It's a stretch. That one's a stretch.
Then what would be the point?
Exactly. What is the point?
Good question.
But I'm
it's just a contradiction.
Point. Well, it would be a contradiction in the Jewish faith. That's not his only son.
Right.
But this is Genesis.
But you realize in Genesis it talks about like the waters being separated from the waters, and we're talking about like the firmament and like the fact that back in those days I thought, like, dude, Genesis is got problems.
Go David, ahead. What shape is the earth?
You said what?
What shape is the earth, David?
Round, a sphere.
Okay, good. Okay.
Just
sometimes we get people we talk to, and then all of a sudden they're like, "I know it's flat," and then I was like, "Crap! This whole time I didn't know we were talking to."
But you're telling me you think this is a strong stretch, or like not something to consider?
Wait, which part?
Okay,
a flat Earth?
Okay. No.
The Abraham Isaac story.
I think what you're saying is that, and actually I think I know where you're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you're crazy. First of all, I don't think you're crazy. First of all, I could be crazy, but I think what you're saying is, if this text was written in like Genesis,
whenever BC, yeah,
whenever BC,
yes, and it had the apparent contradiction of one and only son because concubines don't count. But if we count concubines, technically it's your second son. Mm-hmm. Then you're saying that it only makes sense if we count concubines because we're pretending like the Old Testament cares about concubines. Then we're saying that there's technically two sons.
Does he? I just wanted to know if he agreed with that point before you keep going forward. Because if he doesn't, then there's no point in keeping going forward.
Do you think that the Old Testament cares about concubines?
Not necessarily, but I think it is very peculiar that he keeps going, your son, your one and only son, and then
I think that's very peculiar, especially.
I just think that it's the same way.
Sacrifice him and put wood on his shoulders.
Right. I just think it's this. I think it's the same way when they said that like 600,000 Israelites left Egypt, and they were really only meant the men. Which, by the way, means that there was like 2.3 million people that like left Egypt and like traipsed around with no archaeological evidence. That's a whole nother story. That's this.
Okay. Well, my main point with this too, though, is that like what we were reading Galatians, it wasn't technically talking about this sacrifice story. What it was talking about is Isaac and Ishmael are two symbols of something being made right with God, God's way through Jesus Christ. And the other way, which is by the law, which it was comparing to Ishmael. But you're saying like, which I think is consistent in scripture, is like, yeah, concubines and stuff don't matter, right? But what I'm saying, Paul is actually acknowledging Ishmael. He's just saying that's a human effort, just how Abraham made a human effort to bring a child forth. And because like, oh, God promised me this.
That's great philosophy. I know a lot of great philosophers.
Yeah.
Like Philo. I encourage any of the viewers to read Philo. In fact, if you read Philo, you'll really understand John, because it talks about the Logos, like, which is the word. When John says in the beginning was the word is technically in Greek logos, and philo is all about logos, and that's a middle Platonism like philosophy. But I think so I understand the connection you're making. You're saying like this contradiction only makes sense if Jesus was real, which I get that, but like we do need to, you dang it, David, if you come back, which I really hope you do, we have to then you just opened a can of worms about contradictions, and we can talk about contradictions. I would love you to like bring apologetics about contradictions, and and it can be like simple contradictions, whether it's like just like this in
because numbers don't match or something.
Okay, and I'm gonna give you the meta. Okay.
Okay.
No. I do.
All I'm going to say is let's keep it brief, because we said
an
hour ago we were tired, and Adele is tired.
Okay. Very, very briefly. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings were written, and then 1st and 2nd Chronicles came to fix Samuel and Kings. So there's a lot of contradictions between Samuel and Kings that Chronicles had to fix, because the priestly source came in to fix those. So I can wipe those off. We can just wipe those off the table if you want to, or if we want to dive into those, we can. There's a lot of other ones, but I would love to talk about any of this stuff.
When's the next time you guys think you'll be online? Or
that's a good question. We don't have an official calendar yet.
We're getting there. We're starting to like settle into our rhythm.
Okay. I'm sure I'll find you guys.
Probably Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday for sure. And I'll make sure we pop it on our thing early.
Okay.
We'll try to schedule it out once we know.
I don't want to say my favorite, because we have other people that we really like too, but you're one of my favorite people to like talk to.
I bet you tell that to all the people.
No, but we actually have gotten a lot of feedback on our conversation.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
and you're very
awesome
you bring a very intelligent conversation to the table. Dude,
and
literally
kind and honest. I feel like you're honest.
Go back to go back to this recording to your like
he said he did that last
thing
time.
On James.
I thought that he had like a
dude.
Notepad.
Take it to your church. That's a sermon, and that is the best sermon. I've never heard James explained as well. They don't
listen to me at staff. They want to have balloons and Easter egg parties. I'll be like, let's just read the Bible. Shut up and push that fader.
Override him. You're the AV guy. Just like
right. I just mute everybody.
Look, dude, I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're gonna call it.
Yeah,
it's late. Yeah. She's tired.
Have a great have a great evening, and
good to see you again.
Next time.
Thanks for coming back.
Likewise. See you, Del. See you, Joe.
See ya. Bye.